Is it possible to say that an episode of anime can be a masterpiece? Because that right there is how I feel about episode 4 of My Hero Academia. This right here is hands down my favorite episode yet, and obviously I believe that this right here is probably the best one we have gotten so far. And so this episode, it started off talking about the 3 most well-known heroes. Obviously, number 1 is All Might, and number 2 was a hero called Endeavor, and this hero was the one who has resolved the most incidents in history. So hopefully, that right there was like just a way of being introduced to the story, because I do find it random that they would show these 2 new heroes and we never see them. But number 2 was Endeavor. And number 3, to me, it was like kind of weird because it seems so random. But apparently this hero has won the same award in like 8 years. And his name was apparently Best Genius. And that right there is an extremely random name for a hero. And so obviously now with this hero, I have a ton of questions, but hopefully we can, I see him in the future, because right now I'm thinking, what the hell is a Best Genius? But regardless, after we were like shown these heroes, we learn more about the school, how they pretty much have an acceptance rate of like 1 in 300, and we see now how all these kids are like trying to get in. And so we see now that like at first we get an overview of like the testing area, and we see all these groups now, but going to Midoriya, and from now on I think I might call him Izuku, because to me I find that to me personally, I find that a lot easier to say. But going back to Izuku, we see now how he's like feeling nervous, and we see him looking around, and we see him now spot that nice girl who helped them last week. And so right now he was like gonna go talk to her so that he could thank her, but he was like stopped by that boy who like called him out last week. And so now while he was like talking to him, we have the other guys who had noticed this. And so right now they were thinking that they lucked out, because obviously Izuku, he does not have the best what I should say, he does not look good in their eyes right now. So they were thinking that this right here was like someone that they actually didn't have to worry about. And so now we have President Mike. He was like telling him to start, because now like there are no timers for like when a real battle go down. And so we see now that when Izuku had realized this, everybody had like already took off, and so now he was like already falling behind. And so now we see that while the exam was like going on, Izuku was like looking for someone he could like take on and fight. And so we see now that that when he eventually came across one of the robots, we see now how he got scared, because obviously even though he has a quirk, he has been he's been so used to being quirkless like all his life, he has no idea how to like really fight. And so then we have one of the guys who was like talking about him. We see now how we took out that robot with like some kind of like belt laser. And to me, I'm wondering how exactly is that a quirk, because it seems more like a tool, but I'm guessing maybe his quirk can only be harnessed with that belt that we see him use, or at least that right there is like what I'm guessing. And so we see now he obviously left, because now it's like all about points. And we see now that the Izuku, he was having problems now, because everybody was like taking out all these robots, and we see him not being able to score a single point. Like we saw all of these characters fighting them. Like we saw that guy who had called him out, the boy with the glasses. We see now that his quirk involves speed, and that right there, like kind of gives his legs like this like very, very weird shape, because it seems to be that they make these little exhaust things, and that right there allows him to like use steam, I guess, to like move faster. And then there was this one guy who definitely stood out a lot to me, and right now I have no idea what his name is, but he was this guy who had like 6 arms, and they were like all webbed together. Like now for me personally, that right there was kind of creepy, and I do wonder, how exactly does that quirk work? But when we saw him now, he was like standing on top of a building, so I'm guessing maybe he can like fly with those arm wings of his. But regardless, now everybody was like scoring all these points, and we see now how Izuku also noticed that nice girl who had saved them, she also was like scoring quite a few points as well. And so we see that while all this was like going on, we have all these heroes, who was like watching them, and we see now that All Might was actually among them. But eventually now it was time for their real test to start, and we see that the machine that apparently gives them like no points, this one is like freaking massive. It was towering over everything. And to me, I was thinking, where is Mount Lady when you need her? Because this robot, it was freaking insane how big it was compared to the other ones. And so now we have all these candidates. They were like running away, and once again we have Izuku. He was like paralyzed with fear, and we see now that the boy who had like called him out, even he was like running away. And so we see now that while Izuku was like immobilized, we notice now how that nice girl, she was like now stuck under some debris. And once again, Izuku's body was like moving before his mind could like really think, but this time things were different because he can actually do something. And so now going back to what All Might said about how to use his quirk, and it's hilarious because what he has to do is like squeeze his butt cheeks and yell in his heart, but I would just say, like squeeze those cheeks and say it with your chest, because to me that right there comes off, like way more hilarious. But pretty much all we had to do was like yell smash, and we see now that the quirk, it was like definitely working beforehand, because we see now that when he jumped, you should see like these red lines appearing on his body, like boosting it up some. And so now we see that when he jumped, he got so freaking high, he actually reached the robot's head. And we see now that when he uses his arm, so much power was like coming from it. He actually had destroyed that sleeve of his sweat jacket. And so now we see that when he punched the robot, he pretty much pulled a Saitama with that smash, and that right there was like able to to take it out. But we see that at the same time his body is definitely not used to his quirk just yet, because we see now how his arm, it was definitely broken. Like we saw it like flopping around, and of course we also saw this color as well. And not to mention he also had ripped off the skin off his fingers as well. And we see now how his legs were also, bent out of shape, and they were also, like wobbling around. And to me, that right there was like kind of sick. But at the same time, that right there just shows you how much freaking power Izuku has now. And so, of course, he was like falling, and he still has, one good arm left. And so now he cannot stop himself, but he was saying how he can at least like slow himself down. And we see now how he was planning to using he was like planning on using, I believe he said a Texas Smash or was it Detroit, like one of them. But regardless, apparently he can also, like use the same moves that, All Might has, and that right there is like freaking insane. And so now we see that while he was falling, once again that nice girl actually saved them, because we see now that oh my god, whatever she can touch, that right there is how she used her quirk. And so we see that because of that, she was like able to like slow him down, and that way he did not get hurt. But at the same time, he has all these like broken limbs. And we see how he was like struggling to score even a single point, but sadly that right there is where time had ran out. And so now when it was all said and done, we have all these heroes, talking about him, praising him, but the boy with the glasses was the only one who had realized what Izuku, really did, because while they all were running, he was the only one who took on that robot, because he had wanted like to save somebody, and that right there is like something major. So obviously, this boy, like I feel like Izuku and the guy with the glasses, they will definitely have a very interesting rivalry because, you know, he was saying how if this right here wasn't an exam, then obviously he would have went back and saved that girl as well. So we learn now that this guy is also very competitive, but at the same time, he wasn't that worried because he thought that, you know, that Izuku, you know, had now failed because obviously that robot, you know, was like worth 0 points. And so apparently that older woman that we saw, she actually wasn't she actually wasn't a candidate. She actually works for the UA because she is their nurse. And so we learn now that, you know, that even though she looks very old, apparently she is called the youthful heroine, and we see that her name is like Recovery Girl, and so apparently she like obviously, you know, like her power state, you know, she can heal, and we see now that when she kissed, you know, Izuru, she healed his wounds, you know, like almost instantly, and that right there was like definitely awesome because I was like wondering just how long he might be hurt, but seeing a nurse like that, you know, that right there was like freaking perfect. And so now we learned that that after that little test, there was also a written exam that Izuru had barely passed. But of course, he also like still failed that practical, you know, exam or that mock battle because he not scored a single point. And so now he was like kind of worried. And of course, his mother could realize that because he was like acting weird. He was like smiling all creepily at this fish, and we see him now zoning out quite a bit. And so now his mother was like obviously, you know, like worried about him, but at the same time she was like trying to like cheer him up because she was saying how like she was surprised that he even took that exam in the first place. And so now she was saying how the results should like be here either today or tomorrow. And we see now that when she left and came back, they actually came today. And so now Izuru had went to his room, and we see now that he actually has an All Might nameplate, and that right there is like one of the ultimate signs of like fanboyism because, you know, even All Might called him a fanboy, you know, sometime. And so we see now that Izuku, he was like definitely nervous about this, but obviously, you know, he definitely wants to know what happened. And so we see now that when he opened it, there was like some device that had made, you know, like some kind of projection. But we see now that when All Might was like talking to him, you know, he was saying how he came here, how All Might came here to actually teach at the UA, and that right there I do find interesting because I do wonder, you know, like just how long the classes are, and also just how many will All Might teach, because obviously classes can go on for like quite a bit, and at the same time we know how he has a 3-hour window where he could be in his hero form. So I do wonder if maybe All Might plans on not hiding that anymore, because obviously all the other heroes know that, because we saw that when he was watching, you know, that mock battle with the other heroes, he was like he was in his normal state. There we go. And so now we see that, you know, in his hero form, he was like talking to Izuku, you know, like telling him, you know, what was going on, and obviously, you know, Izuku, you know, he thought he failed, obviously, but at the same time, we learn now how that right there wasn't the only values they were like, you know, that right there was not the only values they were going on. And so now we see the video of the girl, and we learn now how her name is Ochako. Hopefully I'm saying that right, but she actually came there to like plead with President Mike and the other heroes, I'm guessing, because she actually wanted to give, you know, she actually wanted to give Izuku some of her points because she realized that like he actually saved her. And of course, you know, she heard him saying how at least he had wanted to score at least 1 point. And so now President Mike, you know, had told her that they can do that. and at the same time, he also told her that there was no reason to, and so we learn now that the other value that they were like grading them on, that right there was like rescue points, and so we learn now how Izuku actually got a 60 for that, making him, I believe, the 5th or 6th top ranking overall. So obviously he got in, but at the same time, I noticed that some people actually gave his like rescuing a 7 or an 8, and to me personally, I believe that Izuku, he definitely actually deserved 10 across the board, because that right there was some impressive rescuing, to like say the least. But at least now he got in. And we see now that when his mother find out, of course she was like happy for him, and so now so at least now part of his dream is like coming true, because he can now go to the UA, and that right there will also lead to him becoming a hero eventually. But we see now that in a preview, Kazuki obviously became one, so did Ochako, and the boy with the glasses, and who else? Oh. And that guy with the waist laser, he also got in. And for some reason, to me, this guy comes off extremely fishy. So obviously, I am definitely keeping my eye out on him and the boy with the glasses. And also, like, there was like some boy who had the name like Tetsu, right? And Tetsu, like who in the world had the same first and last name? That right there is like crazy. But apparently, Tetsu actually scored lower, by 1 than what's the name? Than Izuku. So even though he might have a weird name, he is definitely a character that I do believe will make some kind of impact. And also from the preview, we do learn that Izuku will have a very strict homeroom teacher. So obviously that right there will also make for a very interesting. That right there will also make for a very interesting dynamic as well. But overall, this episode was like nothing but fantastic. If I do have to give it a rating, I would probably say a 12 out of 10, because that right there is just how good I found the episode to be. But as always, don't forget to like and subscribe. That really helps me out. And as always, you guys take it easy. I will see you all next time.